Hey, what's up everybody, this is Alfred from Practical Code Academy. Welcome to the second video in the JavaScript course. And in today's video, we're going to go over the console object. And the console object is actually an object in the JavaScript that have multiple functions that will allow you to print anything you want, any data to the browser console. So let's get started by opening the folder that we created in the last video for our course with the Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it console.js. And since this file is in the same directory as index.html, I will load it in my script tag here using the source attribute, and I'm just going to put console.js. This is the file name, and save it. I'm going to open it with the live server, and since the live server here, I'm going to open the developer tools using the F12 key or by right-click, click and then inspect. And I'm having here in the bottom the developer tools, and as you can see, we're already on the console here. So this is your browser console, and this is great for debugging your code or any development that you do for your application. It's not going to be printed to the user, however it's going to be printed to you as a developer. So I'm going to put it side by side here, and now I'm going to go to the console.js. In JavaScript, you can add the line comment by 2 forward slashes. So I'm going to add a comment here saying console object. And as we discussed in the last video, console object is part of the window object. But since the window object is the universal or the general object, you don't have to put window.console. You can just refer to the console right away. And one of the very important functions that come with the console is the log function. So if I'm using the log function, and to tell JavaScript this is a function, you need to use opening and closing parentheses. That's how JavaScript identified that the console.log is a function. And between the opening and closing parentheses, you can pass any data to that function. So console.log function can accept strings. And what I mean by strings is just a bunch of characters that you can pass as like a word. So to identify a string, you have to put a single quotation, opening and closing for a string, or you can use the double quotation. Here I'm just going to use the single quotation. Both are the same. I'm just going to put this is a message to be printed in the console. And if I save this, notice that the message already here been logged to the console, and the same message or the same string that I passed to the console.log function. Also notice here in the developer tool, you will have a reference to the file that executed this function. In that case, is going to be console.js, and also the line that executed this function, which is line 2, because we're here in the line 2, because the first one is just the comment. You also can log numbers. It doesn't have to be a strings. So I can use console.log, and I put any number here. So I'm not going to add a string. So it's just a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I save it. And as you can see here, the number will be printed. Notice that the number having the blue color, however, the string type having the black color. This is how you distinguish between numbers and strings. Beside numbers, you also can print Boolean values like true or false. So I can do console.log and false. And once I save this, you'll have here the false been printed. And this is a Boolean. This is not a string because I didn't wrap it with a single quotation. So if I wrap it by a single quotation, now notice what's going to happen. It's going to be printed in black, not in blue, indicating that this is a string. It's not a Boolean anymore. So I'm going to put it back as a Boolean. Also notice that every single line I terminated with a semicolon. This is similar to the C++ if you're familiar with C++ programming language. However, here, it's not going to break your code if you didn't terminate it. So I can take out the semicolon and your code will run perfectly normal. However, it's a good practice that you add the semicolons in JavaScript. So I'm going to keep them semicolons. And instead of passing the data directly in between the parentheses or the opening brackets of the .log function, you can hold the value in a variable and then pass the variable name to the console.log. What I mean by that, you can create a variable, using the var keyword. So I'm going to put the var and then the name of the variable, what I want to call it. I'm going to call it name. And then I can put here John Doe. Now the variable name is the name, and the variable value is going to be John Doe. And now since they are stored here using the variable name, I can console log it to as well, console.log, and I pass the name of the variable, which is name. And this will print whatever inside this variable, which in that case, John Doe. If I save this, as you can see, John Doe printed here on the console in black because it's actually John Doe is a string. You also can print arrays. And what I mean by arrays is just a collection of data that they are having something in common, and you put them in an array and you can print it out. So I can create another variable and I'm gonna call it hobbies. Now this hobbies, I'm gonna generate an array of hobbies. Like I'm gonna put soccer, reading, and swimming. Now all these pieces of data is stored as an array, and the reason for that, I'm using the opening square bracket and closing square bracket, and I'm passing all the string pieces of information separated by a comma. So now I have one item, second item, third item. And the way array work, it have this item, the first item always have an index of 0. So here, this is the second item, which is having an index of 1, then the third one here having an index of 2. And we're going to go in details about arrays later on in this course. So if you don't understand what is arrays is, how you can use them in your code, don't worry about this. I just want to show you that console.log can print the arrays to your console. So now I'm going to put console.log and pass the hobbies. And once I do that, notice here that you have the number 3. And the number 3 is indicating the number of items inside this array. And if I click on this arrow, I'm going to find the soccer is having the array index 0, reading having array index 1, and swimming having array index 2. And it will also give you the length, which is 3. This is the length of this array. Beside array, JavaScript using objects. And what I mean by object, you can create an object like variable person, and object identified by the curly brackets like this. So you have a opening curly brackets and closing curly brackets. So the person variable will hold an object, and an object having a key value. If I put the name as the key, what is going to be the value of this name? It's going to be John. And to add another item in this object, you have to put a comma, then also add the second item. In that case, is going to be age. I'm going to put a number in that case, which is going to be 27. So now we have an object of a person starting by curly brackets and ending by curly brackets. The first item in this object will have the name key, and its value will be John. Notice that you separate the key and the value using the colon here. And each item separated from the second item by a comma. Similar that we did with the array, we separate them by commas. Here we can print this object using the console.log. I'm going to print person. And notice here, it will give me the curly brackets indicating that this is an object. Similar to the array here, give me the square bracket indicating that this is an array. And also will give me the arrow here. And once you go inside here, it don't have an index because it's have a key. So you can refer to this piece of information by the key, not by index similar to the array here. We access the soccer by the index. However, here we access the age by the age key. That's it for the console.log. It can print any type of data that you want, but I want to show you that you can also use console.table with object. So table, it will present the data of that object in a better way in a table. So I'm going to pass the person, and if I save it, as you can see here, we will have a printed table for this object where the key is the name, and in that case referring it to as an index, and the value will be John, and also the age and will be 27. So for object, if you want to like a visual representation of an object, you can use console.table instead of console.log. If you want to clear the console, you can use the console.clear function. Even though clear, you don't pass anything to it, similar to whatever we pass here to the table function, you still need to add the opening and closing brackets here to tell JavaScript this is a function. And once I save that, as you can see, it will print all of this, but then it will clear them and it will give you the message console was cleared. And that was happening in line number 20, which is this line here. So console.clear will clear your console. I'm going to add here a comment. As we mentioned that the comment, you do line comment by 2 forward slashes. So I'm going to do clear console. Beside logging or clearing the console, you can generate errors to the console using the console.error function. And here I can pass anything as a string to show the error message in my console. So I can say something like this is an error. And if I save this, as you can see here in your console, you will have this kind of error, which is a custom error that we generated using console.error, and it will be in red, saying this is an error, which is identical to the string that you're passing here. So if I added something like exclamation mark, that will be reflected over here. And if you open it, it will tell you actually which line generated this error, which is console.js line 22nd. Similar to errors, you can generate warnings, which are going to be printed in yellow. I'm going to use console.warn to warn the user for anything. So I can put the string, this is a warning. And if I save this, you will see here the warning. So you can generate errors, you can generate warn, but this is actually not really errors or warnings. This one is just a custom one that you can print them to the console of the browser. Another thing I want to show you, since we already discussed the line comments, you can do block line comments or multiple line comments. And to do multiple lines comments, you simply use the forward slash like this, and then an asterisk. And you put any comments that you want. I'm going to put multiple line comments. Just add another line, multiple line comments. And when you want to close this multiple line comments, you do the opposite what you did when you open it here, the comment, which is the forward slash, then the asterisk. Then you have to start with the asterisk and close it with the forward slash. And that's it. This is the multiple line comments, and this is not going to be shown in the browser. We're not going to give you any errors because they are just comments. Comments mean it's not going to be executed by your browser. It's just for you. You put notes. Similar as we added the note here, clear the console, that this function here, clear, will only clear the console of your browser. Well, that's it for this video, guys. I hope now you have a better understanding about the console object and all the functions that comes with it, and you can use it in your applications, because we're going to rely on this a lot, especially in the debugging of our application later on in this course. In the next video, we're going to cover data types in JavaScript. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe now. See you in the next video.